Right on. Hola, hola, hola. Welcome, everybody, and hello to our wonderful community. We're starting a community conversation at Jibaritos with our wonderful candidates who could make it. My name is John Rivera, and many of you know me by JR or Johnny. I'm a local advocate in the community who was raised and still resides in Holyoke, and I will be your moderator tonight. I wanted to thank all our organizations and that made this event possible, specifically Radioplasma, and be sure to follow them for the broadcast, which will be on their Facebook and their website, radioplasma.com, and Jibaritos, of course, for this wonderful space that we are all partaking in, and of course our wonderful candidates who are all here today. I want to remind everybody that we extended an invitation to all the candidates, and that this will be more so a fluid conversation between the candidates and with questions by local residents. To start off, we'll have a conversation about the community and for 45 minutes, and then we'll move on to Q&As. And again, just to remind everybody that this is not a forum, more so a conversation starter. It is very much a collaboration between all of you all who can make it and members of the community. And it is time to show how we come together as Holyokers and our love for the city that we reside in, and what that looks like to each and every one of you. And with that being said, I guess we'll start with the conversation. And with that being said, we could probably start with Devin Sheehan. This is, I guess, if you want to introduce
Talking about going first. We were just talking about it. It's so reckoning. You gotta go first.
Should have done like.
We're okay with going first?
Oh, sure. Introduction, what?
Yeah, it's supposed to be fluid, so like whatever you want. If you want to start with introducing, if you
Sure.
want to wouldn't ball it.
Yeah. My name's Devin Sheehan. I'm a candidate here for mayor in the city of Holyoke. I'm an 11-year member of the Holyoke School Committee. I currently work in municipal finance for the city of Springfield. Born and raised in this city, and went off to college in New Hampshire and earned a master's degree at UMass in public policy. Lived here my entire life. And I'll keep the intro quick tonight, and so we can get into the deep conversation.
Yeah, good. That was very good opening. Billy Glidden, candidate for mayor, born and raised in Holyoke. Grew up hearing all about what a special place Holyoke was, and my experience of it certainly confirmed that. I think we're a great community, as evidenced by events like this. When I'm out there knocking on doors, talking to voters, what I find is that people have a broad range of perspectives on things, but a deep love of the city that underlies everything. And I am running because I think we're at a critical point, and if we can seize on the love that people have for the city and find common ground upon which to build our future, can and will be bright. So now, Gloria, to talk.
Okay. Buenas noches, yo soy Gloria Caballero. Estoy feliz de estar aquí y muchas gracias a los que están patrocinando el programa. Gracias a mis compañeros. Thank you so much. My name is Gloria Caballero. Thank you to the Jibaritos and all the organizations that are here present making this conversation possible. Estoy aquí, pues representando a la comunidad, tratando de poner una nueva cara, una nueva voz, elevando la conversación, que más que política tiene que ser una conversación entre nosotros, como miembros de la comunidad, como vecinos. Vivo 20 años aquí en Holyoke, estudié en UMass, he estudiado afuera, he viajado, y bueno, eso es lo que traigo aquí a la comunidad. Mucho deseo de trabajo. This is why I'm bringing a lot of energy. To work with my colleagues, and please, I'll pass it now to Josh. Are you ready?
Thanks, Gloria.
Okay, let's do it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joshua Garcia, and I do have to say that I am very humbled to be up here with you guys tonight. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in this activity, and to the hosts that put it together, and our friends in this newly establishment, the Jibaritos Club, which I got to say, by the way, I came on Saturday night and I waited for 20 minutes outside in line. So we got to get that line moving. But anyways, nevertheless, yes, I'm a candidate here in the city of Holyoke, running for mayor, having been born and raised here in the city, gone through the school system here in the city, went on to Westfield State University, got both my bachelor's and my master's degree there, have been involved in many different initiatives and different community activities around our city. Having out of college worked at the Housing Authority. After getting my master's in public administration, I went on and worked for the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And really that's where my career kicked off in local government. I worked there for 5 years as the municipal services manager, working with managers and administrators across the valley, trying to understand best practices and how you improve local governments. I took that skill set and where I currently serve as town administrator in the town of Blandford, where I've been for the last 3+ years or so. And now here I am wanting to transfer that skill set yet again to help build my community here in the city of Holyoke. You know, I'm very grateful to be here and work with you guys in any capacity that I can so that we're lifting our community together. And now I'm going to pass it to Rebecca.
Saludos, buenas noches, me llamo Rebecca Lisi y yo me estoy postulando para ser la próxima alcaldesa de Holyoke. Durante 14 años he estado en el Consejo Municipal construyendo una ciudad de oportunidades. Y ahora, muchas de las políticas se llaman Smart Growth, son responsables para la cambio que vemos hoy. So, good evening everyone, my name is Rebecca Lisi. I am running to be the next mayor of Holyoke. And for 14 years I've been on the city council working to build a city of opportunity. It is my smart growth policies that have really laid down the foundation for the downtown redevelopment and revitalization that we're witnessing today. And I'm happy to be here this evening to have a comfortable conversation with my colleagues here. Thank you.
Rick, I think it was great.
Yeah, good job.
Congratulations. Yeah. Well done.
Trying, right?
I know. Well, this is what we're all doing. We're doing, trying something for the community to connect and to be able to just reach out. Estamos todos tratando de conectar y además de eso aprender. And what you did is important. You realize, like all of us, that Holyoke is multilingual. And it's important to send that message out there. Holyoke es multilingüe y creo que Rebeca ha hecho un trabajo fenomenal, se está esforzando, está tratando de llegar a todos nosotros. And it takes all of us, it takes goodwill and it takes good faith.
That's right.
Congratulations. Yeah.
My son is in the Ian White Dual Language program.
Awesome.
So I like to say I have a first grade level understanding of Spanish because of doing homework with him. And
You're going to go to the third
I
grade
think
level.
I think you're doing a great job. You're doing an awesome job. Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Poquito a poquito. Little by little.
Yeah.
Right on. So where do we start, I guess?
But what's the first question that you
Well,
said there was a
so-
community, some questions that came from the community or?
Yeah, so the first 45 minutes of it is just meant to be a fluid conversation amongst candidates. So I guess if anybody wants to take the lead, the charge, as to what you guys would like to talk about.
Why don't we use the questions as props for
Oh, sure.
cross-cutting dialogue?
Yeah.
Sure. Right on. So I guess, since you guys are all from Holyoke, right? What's something that you would love,
Been here a long time.
Exactly, been here for a long time, that's good enough. So I guess what would be something that you love most about Holyoke? It's something that really drives your attention, really ignites a passion in your heart about Holyoke. And I guess we'll start that with you.
Yeah, at the other end now. So right, I am not from Holyoke originally, I'm from New York, and one of the things that I love about Holyoke is the fact that it really is a multicultural city. And we have this really lovely architecture that gives us an authentic sense of place, and there's a real feeling of community here. More so than in any town that I've ever lived in previously. Like I think more often than not, when you step into Holyoke, like somehow you get sucked into the community and part of like the community life here. And that's really special to me, and I really love again, the diversidad, la comunidad y the sense, lo auténtica, sensible que es un lugar único.
What I like about Rebecca's response there is, you know, she came from the outside and she came here and fell in love and got active. And I think that that's important, you know, as we move forward and build our community. We want people to be able to choose Holyoke to move to and raise their families. And so when I hear that, and I hear many other people, I'm sure you guys kind of experienced this too yourselves, knocking on doors. Hey, I just moved to Holyoke 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or last. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, that's good. You know, we want people from the outside coming in and calling Holyoke home. But to add to that, yeah, absolutely. You know, having been born here and raised here, and my roots being here, I think the greatest thing I love about Holyoke is how my Holyoke story contributes to the greater fabric of you know, the Holyoke community. You know, my mother and my grandmother migrated here from Puerto Rico. She was born with a hip displacement, and a group of Shriners were looking for children with special bone conditions. And so my grandmother got, you know, she sold everything she had and raised all the money she can to migrate here, and you know, the rest is history. And that's my Holyoke story. So, you know, you hear Rebecca's Holyoke story, my Holyoke story, and you're going to hear many others, and that's what I love about this city. I love that, you know, that people can come here and just contribute to the fabric of the roots of when the city was first created. You know, as the first industrial city in the country, you had a lot of migrants coming here to build. So, yeah.
I think what I love about Holyoke is the people, you know. I just walk out there and then I speak to them in Spanish and say, oh, morena, I think I'm morena, I'm cubana, soy cubana, yo hablo español, and I love the sense because I find here what I find in Cuba. People out of the streets, the kids running up and down, negotiating, learning, you know, from each other. I love that sense of community. There was someone who said, hey Gloria, weren't you offended when this article called you a transplant? I said, no, you know, because if you are an organ that is transplanted into the body, and the body moves, you know, it's because the organ is adjusting to the new tissues that are growing, and that the body is also responding positively to that organ.
Yeah, I didn't think about it.
I am a transplant, sí, yo soy un trasplante, como decía, pero está bien. Es cuando un órgano se adapta al cuerpo y entonces se pone un corazón nuevo, un órgano nuevo, pues si hay esa simbiosis, esa unión, pues es lo que hace que el cuerpo después avance, ¿no? Pues a mí me encanta la ciudad, me encanta caminar, ver los niños que no están en la casa jugando, sino que están afuera, negociando, ensuciándose, y eso me remite mucho a donde soy. Yo soy cubana y vengo de un barrio también, ¿no? De la calle. Y eso es lo que me gusta de Holyoke. La gente, sí, el ruido a veces me molesta, pero me gusta porque sé que hay vida, ¿entiendes? The noise sometimes bothers me, but I like it because there's life out there. You see, there are walks, you know, you can walk, there's sidewalks, you can walk. I love this of Holyoke. Many cities you have, you know, this infrastructure. And I'm not, what do you think, Billy? What do you think, what do you love about
I have so
Holyoke?
many thoughts, yeah. Yeah, you know, I was born and raised in Holyoke. Not that I had anything to do with that, but I'm happy about it. And I have these memories of growing up, driving around with my dad. So my dad was born in Holyoke in 1938. He was older when I was born relative to the other dads. And so he grew up in the 40s and 50s in Holyoke. He grew up on a block on Ward 4. And so when I would ride around in the car with him, he'd point out all the places at Avery Field where he learned how to play baseball, and him and his neighborhood gang that meant so much to him. And so I had instilled in me this sense of deep connection and loyalty and love for the city. The fact that, I mean, my father has been gone 11 years now, but he actually thought you had to have something wrong with you to want to be anywhere else. So So I've grown up with this sense of Holyoke being a special place, and I know that people that have been here a long time feel that way. And I think the really beautiful and rich thing that you're all alluding to is that people that come here feel that same way. We're fiercely defensive about Holyoke, we're protective of it, we believe in it. And we see a place to get involved and be involved in transformative things. Like you're running for office now. Rebecca, I remember when you knocked on my door the first time. I was maybe 14. And you were out there getting after it and helping the city. And that's a really beautiful thing, that we have this rich history. You know, we're born in the middle of stories, all of us, that began long before us and will go on long after us, and the hope in a democracy is that we can contribute some little piece of making life freer, more generous, and more humane for those who will come after us. And so I feel very blessed to be part of this.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and I think that, I mean, my Holyoke story is probably very similar to ones you heard from, like Billy's saying. I mean, my family's been here for generations. I grew up behind McMahon School. But my family has deep roots. I mean, Sheehan's Dairy Farm, which was the location where Holyoke Community College is now, was my family's history on coming here, and they led an agrarian history, and I mean, moved up from that, and I mean, that it's the passion of the people here, and it's also the thing when you leave Holyoke, whether you're on vacation or whether you have to go somewhere. I mean, somehow you always bump into someone else that had some, whether they're from Holyoke or some association to Holyoke, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
there's something, like there's,
That's very true.
and we all have way too much Holyoke clothing probably that we identify ourselves with that. But I mean, that's one of the passions of a love of a city. And I hear from friends who aren't from here and people that I've known from college or work or whatever it may be, that I just haven't seen that passion about a community like that. Maybe big cities sometimes, but like people are proud to be from New York City. But I mean, there's lots of people from New York City. But this love of Holyoke and this thought that you are from this community, and that's why when I went to college and I saw so many of my friends leaving the city, and that's something that we saw. I mean, I graduated from Holyoke High in 2001, left, and I came back. And so many of you either chose to come here or came back. It doesn't matter where you find yourself, but it was that come back to this area because there were so many options, right? Like I could have gone, anyone can go anywhere, but it chose to come back. And I mean, bought a house with my partner. I mean, we were raising an 18-year-old now who's going off to college. So, I mean, it's just these choices that all fall into line here, and why I love Holyoke and the passion for the community. And it is such a great community, and it's that defensive-ness. I mean, that if someone says something about Holyoke outside of here, I mean, we are all ready to defend, anyone's ready to defend that's from here. So I think that we live in the best community here in the city. And unfortunately, I will say that I do not speak Spanish. I took a lot of Spanish in school, and it is definitely something that's difficult, but for me, and I can understand a lot of what you're saying. But
you were okay. I got you.
I won't necessarily attempt that, but I mean, it's something to that commitment, and I will find people to help me with the language in the future.
You know, I can attest to that, Devin. I had the privilege of serving with you on the school board, and when I first started, you took on the role as chair, and I admired your leadership and being inclusive. And fine, you don't know Spanish, you don't have Spanish roots or whatever the case, but I've always, witnessed you to, be a hard worker and try and bridge that gap. So.
Yeah. And I'll just say that's why it's so important. And this isn't a plug at all, but it's so important that we have programs in public schools in Holyoke or anywhere else that are teaching language, because I mean, it really is like, I wish that I was multilingual. Like I really do, and that it never clicked for me. But I wish early on at kindergarten I could have been learning a different language, whether it's Spanish or anything, but just to have those abilities.
Well, that speaks of your love for the city, because at least you're trying, and then you're saying it, you're putting it up there, hey, I want to do this, and I think all of us are going to support you, and I can teach you some Spanish.
The dual immersion program,
Yeah,
when Paez introduced it, we were looking for a superintendent at that time, and Paez was the one that introduced the dual immersion and how he had it in Worcester, and it was that really kind of sold it to us. But he brought that here, and you certainly, actually everyone just kind of stood behind it and made sure it was implemented here.
Yeah.
And now your son's in
Yeah.
My kids are in the dual immersion program.
And I think it's a big deal that the community embraced the dual language program in the way that it did and has become such an anchor for our public schools, because I think that in Holyoke there was a moment where there was a fight against bilingual education. And so I think that it really is sort of a benchmark for how far we've come in terms of honoring, acknowledging, and really highlighting the diversity of our community and giving our young people that gift of being able to talk across borders.
Yeah. And also darles el orgullo, ¿verdad? Give them the pride, ¿sí? De que yo hablo español y está bien. I speak Spanish and it's okay. You know? And I can understand you speaking English and it's also okay. And I acknowledge that you're trying to reach out to me because you're trying to learn the language around this. Creo que está bien que todos hagamos un esfuerzo en ese sentido. Y si hay un programa y si puedes trabajar, if you can work more, you know, towards that program. And if the School of Education, you know, the Department of Education can, you know, build up that duolingual, bilingual programs. That's awesome too. Creo que está muy bien. That's our city.
So I think there's an agreement here that whoever's elected, dual immersion continues, right?
Right,
Spread
okay.
across the city.
Okay, we'll support that. Good.
Right on, right on. And speaking of which, I guess a question would be like, what does community look like in from either the school sector to the city government sector? What does community look like in these small little kind of, or you know, some of them are really massive, like the school circle. But like, what does community to you look like in these circles? And I guess I'm forgetting which way we went. I think we went this way. So.
When you cut in one, so you either start with
Can I
Josh
go?
or
I'll go
Billy.
first.
Yeah.
Whichever. Yeah.
No, because it's you know, I've been studying local government for a while, as long as I've been around, and I could say that local government is it's run by the people that live in it. You know, people that live in the community within the border of the municipality. We're all members of that corporation, and government's supposed to be community coming together to make the important decisions that are responsible for, you know, the quality of life of which we all choose to live here. And so it's critical that government is reflective of the municipality you're serving. And Holyoke, that's been the Holyoke challenge for a long time. All across our board, all across the board, from, you know, whether if it's a public position that you run for, a board or a committee, or even departments, right? Different municipal departments and even nonprofit organizations as well. We have a lot of good nonprofit organizations in Holyoke servicing the community that the city often partners with. But when you look at the management makeup or the board capacity, we're disconnected there on that front. And so when you ask the question, you know, what does community look like in government? You know, it's supposed to be, government's supposed to be reflective of our population. And in Holyoke, it's just not. And it's always, you know, for as long as I've been involved, I try to be very intentional on that front and have those conversations with people too. I mean, I serve on the board of directors of the Western Mass Public Health Institute, who, you know, these are experts that assess community health, and it's structural racism and institutional racism that's really impacting the health of communities, and we have to be more intentional on trying to dismantle that, so that, you know, we have people, you know, at the table making decisions on things that impact their everyday lives. So.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Just to add to what you just said, how come just from the government perspective, make everything accessible to the community, you know, bilingual, transparent, so that the community feels that they are part of the process, not observing, but they are also, you know, making part of the decision making and the process. Also, why not make sure that we have, you know, the engagement with the community? Hey, let us create a new position. Community leaders, community liaison. You know, how about by barrios and not by wards? Because wards are so, you know, so large. There's many people. At least barrios, smaller scale, so that we connect with the people, open doors. Please bring your ideas, hold us accountable. That's a responsibility. We want to build the community, but the community has to understand that they have a responsibility too. Okay?
That is true.
Tenemos que construir la comunidad, pero la comunidad tiene que estar también segura de que hay una responsabilidad. Vamos a abrir las puertas, vamos a también a decir, pedirnos cuenta a nosotros como oficiales electos, pero también la comunidad tiene que también tener la responsabilidad de decir, bueno, sí, me toca, ¿ok? It's on me too. Y creo que es importante también de que las puertas abiertas de la administración, las puertas estén abiertas, pero que esas puertas digan, bueno, qué es lo que quiere la comunidad, ¿no? ¿Cómo vamos a hacerlo como una comunidad? Y cómo tiene que ser accesible en español, en inglés, y que sea friendly, user friendly, que no sea, okay, click here and then a window. If you open this window, then go to the left corner. No. Make information accessible. Toda la información accesible, transparente, bilingüe, y que todo el mundo tenga una responsabilidad en que construyamos entre todos pues un Holyoke que sea de unidad, de fraternidad, de diversidad y multigénero. Eso para mí es muy importante. That is very important. We are multi-gender, multilingual, pluriethnic, and gender diverse. That's a community. What do you think, Lili?
That was all very good. This made me think about what happened with Lyman Terrace. I know that housing development, talk about like activating people's power, right? This was the people in that community themselves who were self-defined as a community and understood that there were interests in town that felt that it had to be torn down or else the downtown could never come back. And the tenants got up and fought for their homes, and working with the administration, I know Councilor Lisi was very involved in this, working with the city to make sure that the policy that was developed was in line with the desires and the interests of the people there. There's a saying in activist circles that nothing about us without us. I think that a good city government should be tapping into the homegrown movements that are here, the power that people have to be self-determining, not have a top-down kind of approach that we know best. We are here as stewards of the common good and the will of the public. And that requires also building solidarity. I know that's a big focus of this event. I know, JR, you're very invested in that kind of work. Race and racism were mentioned. One really pernicious function of racism is that it obscures interests that overlap. People become more invested in preserving a notion of superiority that is arbitrary and have nothing to do with anybody's intrinsic worth as a human being. And so you can then fail to see that an investment in one part of the city is actually good for all of us. There was a good lecture about this, John Garcia at UMass, for the cost of racism to white Americans. You can look it up.
Yeah, and I think when you're thinking about your community, it's also what you're taking back from your community. And I think about some of our decisions that have been made in Holyoke in the past is that I think leaders have made decisions and then weeks, months, days, whatever it may be later, have to go back on them because you have these community types of engagement, and Billy has mentioned and Rebecca has mentioned in the past with Lyman Terrace. I mean, it was something, it was there, and if that engagement was done ahead of time, would we have solved a lot of that heartache afterwards, right? And it's how you engage with the community and how you speak with people, and I think that our communities intersect so much in different areas, right? Because Jerry, you mentioned like your school community, and you have your community where you live, but you also have your community when you go to grandma's house, and like whatever that becomes, or who you're with, or if you're at homework house after school, like that's your community. So, yeah, exactly. So it's how those all kind of work together, and I think because you brought up education with that, I think making sure that our school communities are reflective of our community as a whole, and working toward those goals, and making sure that voices are heard, and that voices are listened to. It's not it's making sure that voices are listened to and that you are moving forward, but also that you're willing to go forward. And if any of us have to make a decision for the community, or no matter what role we're in, whether it's mayor or another leadership role, that if it was a bad decision, that you can go back and say, I'm sorry too, right? And that you can try to correct that and heal some of those wounds that maybe have been impacted, no matter the community and what context we're talking to, and try to move forward from that and regain people's trust, right? Because as leaders, we need to trust our community and our residents, and they need to trust us, or we won't get anywhere. And it's really that mutual trust and mutual respect. And I know that it's going to be a lot harder, I think, for so many people in government, all of us here, to earn that trust of everyone, right? No matter who's elected mayor, we are going to have to earn the trust of people, and it's going to take a lot. And we're going to have to trust them to their opinions and their views with that.
Yeah, so I think community is potentially defined in so many different ways, because there are communities based on location and place, and then there's also communities based on identity, and then there's communities based on ideology. So really it could cut in so many different ways, and I think that there's multiple sort of like affinity groups or communities around particular issues, but descriptive representation, or boards and elected bodies and different pieces of the representation of the community in official settings. It's at this point in time very important that those positions look like the community, because of the way that race, class, gender, sexual orientation start to cut up the opportunities that different people have. So we could believe in sort of the same sets of values and goals, but we don't have the same opportunities to realize those same opportunities and goals, because of the way that, again, race, class, gender, sexual orientation start to cut up and predetermine the ways that you can realize the things that you want to see and be in your community. So I think in Holyoke, there is a lot of desire to get involved, but I think in many ways there aren't a lot of arenas for like regular folks to actually exercise those muscles of getting involved and creating something that is representative of themselves. Gloria, you were talking earlier about how like even at the barrio level, like neighborhood based, like that's why for me one of the main pieces of my platform is really focused on neighborhood associations. And it wouldn't be realistic to come in and say, we're going to create neighborhood associations and you're the president and you're the vice president and you're the secretary. That would be like completely arbitrary, and it really wouldn't have any meaning. And so what I would love to see is even rolling it back a little bit further, like how can we give people the opportunity to create neighborhood events and programming, whether it's like mural painting or block parties, something small where people can realize that they have everything that they need to participate in local government. They have the skills to make phone calls and get people out to an event. They have the skills to set an agenda. But I think right now there's so few venues in which people can do that work and feel that they can be effective.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm really looking to work on doing, and it's what I think I have a history of doing in the community. Crush was sort of like a big experiment in terms of giving people the opportunity to connect with other folks, imagine ideas, and then figure out how to go from point A and turn an idea into action. And I'm really proud of the work that happened there. We did a lot of community building through that work, and there's so many people that are involved in either city government in a formal way or informal way through community organizations that were connected to that moment where we're really talking about issues, really talking about how we can reimagine and reinvent the community from the bottom up.
From the bottom up.
Yeah. Public participation is critical, and I'm glad you're mentioning Crush, because I remember that time. I think it was like 21 or 22. I'm 35 now. And at that time, it was a pipeline. It was a very active group that did everything that Rebecca just described. The flip side, though, however, and understand, this isn't anybody's fault here. It's our neighborhoods downtown are really disconnected in our political process in a way where they just don't understand it for various reasons. And Crush, unfortunately, didn't have not much of any Hispanic participation in it. It was a good experiment, but how do we take that and expand and be much more creative so that we're empowering our neighborhoods, downtown Holyoke, and I'm talking about the Hispanic population. And I love the idea with the neighborhood association, and you know, you're absolutely right. Not just create these groups, but establish these groups, provide the necessary, I don't know if you call it training or whatnot, how to run it, but provide funding.
Resources.
Give some sort of pipeline of resources so that they can know how to come to the table and deliberate ideas on how they want to spend it.
I'm gonna just jump in and say a few things. I'll hand it right back to you. But I think with Crush, we did have a lot of diversity in terms of race and ethnic.
I'm talking about downtown Holyoke, where people are making $17,000 a year.
Yeah, so in terms of class diversity, there was the gap. And I think that is a big barrier because folks that are really struggling to sort of make ends meet and are preoccupied with sort of, I'm just going to say survival day to day, they are going to have a hard time sort of like showing up. And so I do agree with you in the fact that it's about providing those resources, and I don't know if it's stipends or other supports, but how can we offset the cost of showing up?
Yep.
I also think that's a matter of collectivizing power. Hacer colectivo el poder. So even those folks making $17,000 a year, if you let people know you have power, you can be a janitor, you can clean, you know, toilets, houses. That's a power broker right there, because they have the power, they have a vote, they have a voice, and they have a cultural approach to, you know, constructing and building a city. So how can we really honestly tell our citizens, you know, our neighbors, you know, you have power, and believe in it. Yo creo que es una cuestión de realmente colectivizar el poder y que la gente tenga la noción de que realmente tú tienes poder. No importa si limpias el piso, si abres puertas, si limpias mesas, no importa. Aunque ganes 17,000 al año, no importa. ¿Cómo podemos hacer, ¿no?, realmente auténticos y decir, tú tienes poder y yo te necesito. You have the power and I need you. So many of the initiatives, from my point of view, has to spring from the youth. You know, I want to bring in the seniors, I want to bring the veterans, and I want to create this collective power so that our city moves on together. And it's not, and I know it's class and it's race. We've had incidents of race, and that's why we're doing this. You know, just showing that we're together, trying to build a community that we love and rebuild it. And all the programs that you've enacted, what you've been working in the city, and all the expertise that you have here in education and your family tradition. This is Holyoke, and we want to say, hey, we want to just, this is a platform, you know? And let us go and walk together along this bridge, this kind of realm that we're trying to come up with in Holyoke. Es un reino que queremos construir, pero ese reino no es liderado. We're not the leaders of that. No, we're public servants.
That's it.
Somos elegibles para servir a la ciudad, ¿no? No para hacer política. Y creo que estar aquí eleva el nivel de la conversación. Being here elevates the level of our conversation. This is us neighbors trying to figure out, tratando de entender como vecinos, cómo echar para adelante la ciudad de Holyoke. How to pull together, you know, and move it through Holyoke to the new level that we all desire, that we're dreaming. And yes, tú tienes poder. You have power. And it's a matter of collectivizing that power. We are all power brokers, and we're all, you know, invested in this commitment
Power
that is.
brokers. I like
Yes,
that.
yes we are. Let us use it.
I like that. I like that.
Tenemos poder.
We all have a voice.
We all have a voice.
Todos nosotros tenemos una voz.
Tenemos una
I
voz.
feel it's
Sí.
like it's one big crime against humanity happening in Holyoke. People in our neighborhoods do not.
Sí.
You know what I mean? It's just we have to do a better job trying to figure out how to bridge that gap. And there is a wealth, that how'd you describe it? Wealth gap or cultural class gap. How do we better bridge that? And I know that there's issues and there's other things that people are involved with that they don't want to participate. But I can tell you, Jibaritos Club was packed on Saturday. I said that at the beginning of my statement. And there were a lot of people here that I don't see at the table anywhere else. And I just think, quite frankly, is because the city, we haven't really made that connection in a way that helps motivate and inspire to that level.
Well, it also goes back to the thought as you're talking about how do we engage people who aren't engaged, right?
Yeah.
In the process that we know, and I think it's exactly what was mentioned when you talk about if you're building these neighborhood groups, these neighborhood coalitions, that there's no one size, there's no one constitution, there's no one whatever it is for these groups. It's community, but it's the engagement of working with leaders, working with the business community, working with places that people are going to, right? Like you find people where they hang out, or where they are, or where they socialize, and that's where we have to engage. And we all know those pockets of the city, right? We all know where those pockets are. So it's how to do that, or get the people on your team to be able to do that. I mean, because no one can do it alone, and is going to do it alone. So it's getting the right people with you and engaging with those people and finding this connection. Oh, go talk to Gloria. She knows this person, and it's those types of connections.
Networking. Yeah.
Well, what you just said before, Gloria, was so powerful and eloquent. I even followed some of the Spanish. And what you're talking about, this all in this together mentality that we have to bring to bear on our politics. I think so often that issues get framed as zero sum. Something that benefits one group must come at someone else's expense, and citizenship is an act of imagination. We have to conceive of ourselves as a community and extend our circle of concern so that we truly recognize that we are all in this together, that our neighbors do have a moral claim on us, and that we should act accordingly. And so,
power brokers.
Power brokers.
that's what's up. I can't add to that.
Hello, somebody.
Yeah.
Don't steal that.
But
I'm just Joshua.
I will underscore that it is important the way we frame the issues is important.
Yes, it's important to talk the talk of the people.
And the story, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. No. Go.
Well, the story we tell should be one that people can see themselves in and working toward a common effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of which, I guess a big question would be why unity? Why right now, of all times? I mean, we've all kind of touched upon this briefly within the conversation, but that's just a question that was presented by a local resident. Yeah, so why unity? Why now?
So where are we starting now, with me or?
Thank you.
It's me.
One of the two, yeah.
I think it's me.
Go for it.
Go,
Okay.
Gloria.
¿Por qué la unidad y por qué ahora? ¿Por qué la unidad? Yo creo que estamos muy pasados. Se nos ha ido la hora de hablar de unidad. I think we're way past due, to talk about unity. And why now? Well, it's better late than never. Mejor tarde que nunca. Y creo que en estos momentos que hemos sufrido el COVID-19, tenemos crisis del medio ambiente, en estos momentos en que la ciudad está tratando de rediseñarse como un lugar para todos y con todos, nunca es tarde hablar de la unidad. Y creo que la unidad es imprescindible para la comunicación. Y cuando hay comunicación, como hay aquí entre nosotros, y hay un reconocimiento de que el pueblo va a entender y va a participar, hablar de unidad es imprescindible. Y esa comunicación pues tiene que ser de dos avenidas. Talking about unity is important, we're past due, and this is pretty much what we're doing here. And it's better late than never. And in this moment that we're all being hit by pandemic, COVID-19, we're suffering an environmental crisis, it is crucial for us to talk about, what is going on in our city. How are we as a city going to design, a better Holyoke with us, for us, and, as a unity. And I think talking about unity and now is never late. I want to refer to some things that were published out there against unity, against people running, against this city being the city that it is, a multiracial, multi-language and gender diverse. What we are doing here is breaking barriers. And we break barriers together because we're trying to build unity in our city. And we're trying to reach out, and I would love to see the people understand that we are part of that people. We're here, but we belong there, okay? Estamos aquí, pero pertenecemos al pueblo y somos parte del pueblo. Creo que los incidentes que pasaron de racismo y de negatividad contra nuestros candidatos, pues es parte de lo que realmente quiere dividir esa unidad que estamos tratando de construir nosotros aquí. Y creo que nunca es tarde para rectificar, para decir estamos aquí. And I think that, if this happened because it was out of fear, then we're doing something right, okay? Si hay alguien que tiene miedo, creo que entonces estamos haciendo algo bien. That's, and I leave it there. What do you think, Lily?
Let me think about it.
Okay.
No, so it's an interesting question. Like the word unity gets used a lot, and I think as a principle of joining forces around common goals that we share, it's a good thing. I think sometimes, especially in politics, the word can be used in the service of papering over genuine differences. So you just got to get in line with what the prevailing agenda of the day is. We need to be unified. I don't think that is how democracy ought to work. I think our political process is a way that we deliberate over genuine difference in an honest way. And there will be genuine differences within and among members of our community, no matter who the next mayor is, no matter how artfully we articulate our ideas. People will disagree. And that's to the good. And I think our diversity in terms of being a multiracial city and all the various other ways in which we're diverse, I think it's important to encounter each other with certain habits of mind that make a democracy possible, which is to say open hearts, a willingness to accept my limitations as a fallible being who doesn't know everything, a willingness to imagine that another person, to imagine how another person might feel given the conditions of their life, and how would I feel if I were walking in their shoes. These are the things that make democracy possible. I think we see this toxic political environment that plays out more so the higher up you go, where we can treat each other as caricatures, and hopefully locally we don't have to do that, because we can sit here and talk, and we can stand on each other's doorsteps and see that we're human beings, and have a presumption of good faith as we build the solidarity that we need. So that is the spirit of unity that I would endorse. Not just a blind following, but a genuine commitment to encounter with openness.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think as we think about unity, it's also what for what is an outcome of a city, right? And for what is the outcome of Holyoke. And as we are working within our city government, working with our communities, working with anyone who comes into Holyoke, it's that push towards creating a better Holyoke, and creating a what will Holyoke look like in 2030 or 2040, or where we'll look as a world. And I think that as we can work with our community, work with the different various thoughts and viewpoints and ideas and vision, I think it's what is going to help push us forward, right? And hopefully push us forward in that positive direction for the city, because I feel like more and more we are seeing that we're kind of right there on the line, right, as a Holyoke, whether it's economics, whether it's our community, and really with everything that just kind of in this pandemic still, right? Like we think it's over, but we always know it's lurking, and there's always something else, right? And it's being prepared for that, what's next, and working with our communities, and being a city that wants to achieve a goal, and that may be a success of our community. That is a success of the community.
So I saw a mural from Springfield on my Instagram this morning. It was a Fresh Paint Springfield, and it was Dr. Martin Luther King, and I forget what the first part of it said, but it was like talking about the beloved community. And it was community, but the word unity was highlighted in community. And I really, I knew that this question was out there for tonight, and I was like, that's exactly what's going on there. Because it's not about this blind, monolithic, unity and glossing over all the differences, but it's about the coming together of differences towards a singular vision or a singular goal. And we can't get there unless we actually lift up and highlight the different aspects of our community and give them strength and give them the ability to show up and contribute their piece in their way. And so for me, I was struggling with the idea of unity. I was like, I don't know if I'm actually all on board with unity. And then I saw that post, and I was like, that's what it is. It's the coming together towards a singular vision and allowing the various sectors of the community, the various articulations of our community to come out and to come forward. And just because this incident with the lawn signs was mentioned recently, I just want to say, Joshua, I'm so sorry that that happened to you and Izzy. And I saw also some of the community reactions where there was a lot of blame being placed on the victims. And I just want to say, the news flash is, it doesn't even matter who did it. What matters is our individual reactions to it. So if we're going to blame the victim, or if we're going to reinforce or reify the messages that are in those hateful signs, then that is the exact problem. The signs don't even become a problem anymore. It's your reaction to the sign that becomes a problem. And I think that those are the things that we need to sort of stand up against and make sure that we say our community, our ability to have multiple parties working towards a singular goal is actually undermined. So not only is the candidate hurt, the group that's targeted is hurt, but our community is hurt when we act like that towards one another, because if we are trying to get somewhere, every action like that is a step back.
I appreciate that, and although the apology for me is unnecessary, just because it wasn't like they said Josh this or Josh that. They what they targeted was the community. They said, in summary here, that Holyoke's problems are because of the minority population that lives in it. And so the intent, and I think everyone up here knows that that's not true. I know you know that's not true. And the intent is that whether if you, I've been using this a lot, but it kind of works for me, whether you live in West Holyoke or South Holyoke, right? No matter the neighborhood and what difference, we're all Holyokers. And as Holyokers, we do need to come together and stand against this false narrative, because that's exactly what it is, a false narrative. It's not true. But there are people who believe that, unfortunately. But how do we defeat that? We stay unified on that front.
But look at us. We're here, right?
Yeah, we're here.
And that's what I was saying. If we're here doing something right, something's, hey, thumbs up, Rebecca. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Easy, thumbs up. Okay? We're doing good.
Good job, Izzy.
And that reaction is out of fear. Es miedo. Si hay miedo, entonces van a desunir. If there's fear, they're going to break us apart. No, united. All of us are going to stand against these kinds of, attitudes and fear, and trying to put, blaming someone or shaming someone. No. We are reconciled with one another, with our histories, with our past, and we want to build something together.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Rebecca.
So, well, I was just going to say, it's this sort of coming together that reframes and builds a new narrative.
That's right.
And hopefully that's a narrative that really serves the community as opposed to takes away and cuts that, and takes away and cuts at the community over and over again.
So the question was, why unity? And my answer is, why not? It's the only way you run a local government.
Yeah.
But I have to say, and I know everyone here agrees, because we all, in our own individual capacity, has been doing work in the community for a very long time. And I don't think it's there. For as long as I've been involved, I've been very mobilized in different groups, different neighborhoods, different conversations and circles, from left to right and middle. I built a lot of relationships with people, and no matter how much you try to bring the conversation of unity, it's a hard thing. Mm-hmm. People aren't trying to hear it. We have a lot of passionate people in our community, which is great, but we have to be constructive and less destructive. And I feel like for the past decade, we've been very destructive in these conversations. And to Gloria's point, us coming together, the differences on the stage, the leaders, whoever's elected, we need to really not just talk it, but start walking it.
Yeah.
Because we do a lot of talking and haven't been doing too much walking, including
I'm
myself.
not walking.
I don't want to isolate anybody, because as long as I've been involved, I know I can always do more. You know what I mean? So we just got to do better in striving for that goal of unity, to your point, Rebecca, so that we're coming together on one path forward for Holyoke, as Hoyokers.
Oh, I wasn't planning on stopping here, but I guess that's how a fluid conversation goes. And I guess that pretty much wraps up the conversation. And again, I'd love to just personally thank you all for coming here today, and for having this conversation. As a native, as a locale, as a youngin, it brings me absolute joy and pride to see all you all come together and speak about these issues that are so close to every one of our hearts. And again, a special thanks as well to Jibaritos for this wonderful event. Yeah. And of course, a special thanks to Radioplasma for hosting this. Johan, you rock.
Yeah.
And again, to remind everybody that this was just a conversation about the community. There will be many forums that will highlight many different topics, because we all know that there's so many different topics and that they can all not be captured in the span of 2 hours. Holyoke is a very rambunctious place, full of many topics and issues, and just to remind everybody, and we would love, and a special thanks to all the watchers.
Good job, JR.
watching this.
Thank
I think that wraps it up.
Thank you.